V.C. Sanyal, the founder member of the Delhi Shilpi Chakra and its first chairman or the president, was born in 1902 in a small district in Assam. The small village where he grew up was very picturesque, but somehow he always felt that it was provincial and that he had set his eyes to appear mainly in a metropolitan city and to live and work there. He lost his father when he was very young, just 6 years old, and he was brought up by his mother, who was an excellent craftswoman and she used to make dolls. Sanyal had watched his mother making dolls and he derived his sculptural sensibility from her. He decided to come away to Calcutta and the family members, as a matter of fact of Sanyal, wanted him to join the university, obtain a degree, and take up a white collar job in British administration. So he joined the Serampore University in 1920. But 1921 proved to be a turning point, and it was at this time that Gandhiji had started his Quit India movement. And Sanyal, sentimental and idealistic, joined the movement and took part in it. And in the bargain, also gave up the university and gave up all foreign goods. But at the heart of Sanyal was his interest in creating or doing painting and sculpture. So he joined the Calcutta School of Art in the 1920s, which at that time the principal was Percy Brown. And the school had a curriculum of developing a good academic sensibility uh, in the artist, that is, a kind of academic naturalism which was derived from the Royal Academy in London and which was the established syllabus that was taught there. On the other hand, Abanindranath Tagore had also set up his own school here at the Calcutta School of Arts and Crafts, where he had his own group of students. And he had brought in the trend of revivalism, the indigenism, whereby he looked at the great traditions of murals found at Ajanta and Bagh, as well as the miniature traditions of the Rajput and the Mughals. Sanyal was interested in both academic realism as well as in the revivalism. But he never accepted any of these as part of his own artistic sensibility. As a matter of fact, he was quite restless to derive his own individual visual language with its own visual vocabulary. However, the school gave him a firm foundation in developing the structure of form, uh, a characteristic which stayed with Sanyal throughout. In examining Sanyal's works, his oeuvre consisted of both painting and sculpture. We find that color was his main forte and structure of the form remained with him. The form he simplified it considerably, so much so that many of his forms in their simplicity assumed a monumentality and an awesome majesty that lent power to his works. His subject matter was not limited to any one particular theme, but rather it came from his environment, from his life experiences, and he looked at the world around him and was particularly attracted to the downtrodden and those in needy. When he painted these subjects, he gave it a psychological insight whereby he was able to look into their despair, their angst, the wretched poverty, and he was able to render it with simple lines and the simple form. In 1929, he had the opportunity of going to Lahore, where he was commissioned to do a portrait of Lala Lajpat Rai, who had uh, passed away recently. And this portrait commission enabled him to establish himself at Lahore, where eventually he became the vice principal of the Mayo School of Art. Being a Bengali, The British looked upon Sanyal as a terrorist, as somebody who was a firebrand, and he was being constantly followed, especially when he went to the forts and riversides, etc., to draw out his subject matter. They thought that he was on an espionage. Finally, in 1936, he decided to resign from the Mayo School of Art and he started his own School of Art, which became a gravitating center for many intellectuals, artists, where they came together, they discussed works of art, and it was here that Satish Gujral and P.N. Mago also came, who later became very important, seminal, nationally and internationally acclaimed artists. Unfortunately, though Sanyal was doing very well in Lahore, the partition brought him back to Delhi. And when he came to Delhi, IFAX was the only platform, where he could join and become a member and carry on with his artistry. Then, through M.S. Randhawa, who was a commissioner there, he was offered a studio space at Gold Market. And in this studio space, he began to work and he used it very judiciously, which became again an important center in Delhi where many young artists came to his studio and derived a lot of inspiration from his work. Delhi Shilpi Chakra also was given its own space at Shankar Market. And Sanyal once again had used his space in a very judicious manner, holding exhibition, organizing graphic workshops, and also many other activities related to art, including an art library. So when we look at Sanyal's works, Sanyal's themes, as I already mentioned, are quite varied and they come from his environment and their compositions, which also still have resonance of Rajput miniatures, as the Shringar is one example. And he rendered many of his themes, particularly landscapes, whereby he simplified it but infused it with a life and a spirit that undeniably had an underlying structure of form. During the partition and when he came away, later on, a few years later, he created a painting in a brooding mood where he shows the representation of a woman who is clothed in a mantle which is white in color or yellowish in color, and the lower garment below is red, and there is a moon in a turgid yellow background sky. There is a sense of melancholia that overwhelms the viewer when one looks at this painting. And perhaps it was the same sense of despondency which Sanyal felt that he imparted to his painting, and today it becomes one of the most representative works of Sanyal. He also did another work which is known as the Spiti landscape, the Spiti Valley, and here he shows the craggy outcrops of the Himalayan mountain. The outcrops, which in the way he has rendered it, particularly the colors, reds, yellows, which are acid yellows and ferocious reds that literally bites the viewer's eyes, convey again the same sense of loneliness and alienation, a despondency, an uprootedness, which perhaps he felt, and taking nature as his symbol, he represents it. Symbolism somehow played a very important role in Sanyal's works, and this he imparted it in a very spiritual manner. Sanyal's works, therefore, remains very seminal. He is considered to be a pioneering Indian modernist who evolved his own personalized visual expression. He was not carried away by the Bengal school sentimentalism or the romanticism, nor was he very much influenced by the academic realism that was taught at the Calcutta school. So, in this respect, how he learnt the basics, set it aside, and then developed his own visual language, which became a trend and which led many of the younger artists to follow in his footsteps. Sanyal led a long, fulfilling, expressive, productive life. He passed away in 2003 at the age of 91. But his works continue to play an important and seminal role, and that he continues to be an important pioneering modern Indian artist.